Welcome to the Concept 101 podcast. My name is Daniel,
Stefan, and Jules.
We are three concept artists currently working in the film and games industry, as well as the organisers of the Concept 101 event in London. In today's episode, we'll mainly be discussing navigating your first job in the concept art industry. Before we start, we also have to thank the current sponsors of the Concept 101 2023 event. So a big thank you to Shark Mob, Wacom, Matic Studios, Atom Hawk, Frame Store, Moon Colony, Foster & Partners, Mood Visuals, Rare, Brainbug, Playground Games, Learn Squared, Mathematics Studios, ArtWad, Focal Point School, and Sharp Corner. Obviously a lot of what we've spoken about on the podcast up to now is, talking about how to get a job and what to do and how to get your portfolio under wraps and all of this stuff, which is very useful for students. But one of the kind of, I feel like, selling points maybe that we've always had as like a group of three people is that we're pretty new into the industry and we kind of offer that opinion and that kind of mindset about stuff of like how, we're not veterans at all.
Yeah.
You probably shouldn't listen to us really. But we
just leave.
But yeah, we've all been in our first jobs like very recently.
Yeah, in the last 2 years. Really.
Yeah, not a far gone memory at all. So I think it's kind of interesting while it's fresh in our minds to create this little time capsule, maybe for ourselves as well, but for other people who are potentially navigating the problems and the difficulties of going into a first-hand job while it's like fresh in our heads, essentially. Yeah.
I guess you start with the, holy shit, I made it.
Yeah.
I think for me that was like the first week at minimum. I was like, I can't believe I'm actually paid and I'm doing like every day I'm waking up and I'm doing this and they take me seriously and they care about, I don't know, it was just such a nice experience.
But yeah, that time when I remember when I got the job at ILM, I was in a really bad mood that day and I was like chopping wood with my dad in the garden. So I was like carrying around this fucking axe and I put my phone away.
You sound like a Viking, like.
What can I say? I'm a warrior.
Wow. The warrior of Oxford.
Yeah. It's a very brutal place.
Yeah.
But I put my phone away because we were chopping wood. I didn't want to break it, and I didn't want to like accidentally smack it with the axe.
You didn't want to break the axe, right?
With my phone?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what you mean by that, but
it means
yes.
you have a very tough phone.
Yeah, he's very.
Oh yeah.
Especially when you're angry.
And yeah, when I got the phone call, like I weirdly enough, like I put my phone down. I hadn't had it for like hours, and I just been like working in the garden. And I picked my phone back up, and like the minute I picked it up, I got the phone call, and my dad was outside with me, and he was like, "Who is it?" And I was like, "Get inside." I was like, "Go away." And so him and my mum were like standing on the other side of the door into the house while I was getting the phone call, and I was like, "Yes!" like on the outside, and they were like, "Yay!" by stopping the phone call. But yeah, I mean, it's a really kind of like when you've worked towards something for so long, it is a really gratifying experience to finally get a job.
It's so nice. It's such a good memory. I was, my girlfriend's brother was visiting us for the weekend, and like my hiring for my first job went in like 2 days. It was like, reach out to me, interview. Okay, you start Monday.
Yeah.
And so it was like very fast. Like
that's crazy. Actually,
yeah, it was crazy. So and at the time I was kind of really. It was a long time for me looking for a job, so I was quite down and not very happy. And I was like, okay, what the fuck am I doing now? And within like 2 days, it was like, I have no job. Like, how am I gonna do? It's quite painful. To like, okay, maybe. And then they were like, oh yeah, you're gonna work on. It turns out that in the meeting they were like, oh yeah, you're gonna work on Wednesday for Tim Burton.
Yeah.
And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And I was just like, and it was very funny because we had a guest at home, and I was like, can't believe it, and I was so happy, and yeah, and it really feels unreal.
Did you have happy memories, Stefan, or misery? Like
Yeah.
you got to give a contrasting opinion. You got to lie.
Yeah, I got the show. I was like, oh my gosh, really? I was in Germany at the time when I went through an interview with Ben Penrose, who's no longer at the company. Unfortunately, he started his own company. We miss you, Ben. And he will never listen to this
Little
anyway.
Angel gone too early.
So he interviewed me, and it was this weird. What?
Sorry, I'm just laughing about Jules' comment there. Sorry, keep going. I'm sorry.
It's because I said something.
Anyway, so
I was keeping my laughing quiet, so I didn't interrupt.
Pretty much on the interview with him, I almost like basically knew that I was hired. They kind of told me, and then I had just 2 more interviews. They were just making sure that I was kind of okay and ready to work in a team and stuff like that, and had the right motivation in terms of like, I think they really wanted to find someone who was really motivated and could work by himself. At the time I was joining a team that was like the Sharkmo Blunder was just opening. I even remember they posted an article online about this. It was like, Sharkmob is starting strong with these new joiners, and I was there. And there's like, please don't Google this. And there's like photo of me with like a beard and like, and when there was like the lockdowns and shit, and I like didn't even shave. And then I just moved from Germany to London, and we had to quarantine for. Well, I mean, we quarantined for 2 weeks. I don't remember how long it was. In the apartment that was paid also by Sharkmo, which was very nice. And in the end, they're like, send us a photo. We need it for a press release. And I had this horrible photo posted online about Sharkmo hiring some people. And
was there an emotion attached to this? I don't think you said if you were happy or sad or anything.
I was really happy. I don't really fully remember like being like jumping around. Maybe it was just like a feeling of relief and excitement.
Yeah.
But also like not knowing what is the future, because Sharkmob at the time, now they at least have like 1 game release, but at the time you didn't know much about them. You couldn't really look up much about them. So I knew they wanted to work on something really cool, but I had no idea what it was gonna be. And yeah, I was kind of not worried, but I was like, this is amazing opportunity. Yeah. But I was realizing that this is gonna be like quite difficult, because it's like
I think there's a word for that. I think there's a phrase.
What in
imposter syndrome.
Yeah. It's because like you're so happy you made it, but then you slowly realize, oh wait, can I do this? Am I good enough? Wait, these people are professionals, and they're gonna. What are they waiting for me to be like very fast? And like, you just ask yourself so many questions, and then I guess the first day arrives, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess my first job, it was like, we need you right now.
Yeah.
So I had this introduction, but the first day I started doing concepts already on the first day.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I did.
That's impressive.
They were like,
practice really. They really get you on the job.
They introduced me. It was very nice, right? I couldn't complain. And I had an artist, Nandor, who's amazing, who was taking care of me for like a very long time. Yeah. And he really introduced me to everything, taught me so many techniques. But yeah, it was very much, here's the layout we have, here's the 3D renders that what team made. But go for it, paint over, do a keyframe out of it. And then it was this every day, 1 or 2 keyframes per day. And so it was very much like trial by fire. But at the same time, I never felt uncomfortable, because they were like very helping me in a way.
So did you not really experience imposter syndrome while you were at the company? Do you think it kind of like moved too quickly for you to do it in a way?
Yeah, maybe. You know what? Yeah, probably. Yeah. I did have it at the beginning, especially the first day. I remember the first day.
Yeah.
Because since they directly gave me a task, I finished it. No, I didn't finish it. And I was like, oh wow, it's quite bad what I did. And then I was quite stressed. And also, very stupid thing I did when I used the iPad to do everything. And so the first day I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to learn Photoshop again.
Yeah.
Because I used to basically skip Photoshop and use Procreate instead, which is great. But when you have to use render passes and work on a very fast pace, I was like, okay, Photoshop.
Yeah.
So the first week of my work, I kind of, during my free time, I was just learning Photoshop again, which went fine. But yeah, I remember after the first day, just continuing working for a few hours, just because I wanted to give them something nice, because I felt like I didn't meet the expectations, which they never told me that, right? They were very happy with what I did, I think. Especially because it was my first day, but it was, yeah, I did feel the pressure, definitely.
Yeah, I think weirdly, so I obviously like ILM, which is my first job, and I'm very lucky for that. It's a very prestigious company, and there's a lot of expectations, I think, which go with working there. I would say that weirdly, I didn't feel imposter syndrome I don't know if I could describe it like that. I had already worked like some freelance jobs, and during those freelance jobs, I think I kind of worked through a lot of the stress and anxiety I had about being an artist.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked on a bunch of music videos and stuff like that. I worked on some advertisements, which were very kind of influential learning experiences for me, because that's where I kind of learned like, oh, there's deadlines. I do the work. I do my best. Someone tells me it's either good or bad, and then I just do it. And that's kind of it, right? There's not really a lot to almost to have anxiety about or feel like an imposter about, because I think one of the things that really stuck with me that somebody told me was like, and I had to learn this, I suppose, but it was in the back of my head the whole time, was like, if someone hires you for a job, you're probably good enough for the job.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's something I keep telling myself even now,
Yeah.
Like, no one, like, it's a business, right? A business goal is to make money,
Yeah.
right? It's a hard enough job, very competitive. So no one is ever going to hire you if they don't even think you can do the job, right? I mean, some people, they see potential in you, and maybe you're not that good, but they see the potential, so they hire you. But then, they're putting money on you. So don't worry, that's their choice.
Yeah.
And it's for a good reason they do it, right?
I think, yeah, like when I joined the company, I did feel anxiety about being there in a way, and I wanted to perform, but I kind of just told myself, I guess I probably did have imposter syndrome, right? I'm just trying to be a cool guy and be like, I never had any worries about it. But yeah, I mean, when I was looking back at it, of course, I was like looking at all of this amazing work that people were doing. And I was like, holy shit, like, wow, this is like so far beyond me. I think the way that I justified it in my brain was I was like, well, they're them and I'm me.
Yeah.
I was like, no one's expecting me to be an art director, right? So it's probably fine. But yeah, I mean, some amazing people have worked at ILM, and I still don't feel like I am as good as any of those people. But by the same token, like, I've performed my job fine, and I've made clients happy, and people like it. So, and I think that's what matters, is like, beyond your personal perception of how good you are, like, as long as you're doing the job, there's nothing to be an imposter about.
But also now you've already been through you've already been through the job, so now you don't have it anymore because you have performed. But
Totally.
the first day is a bit different.
Yeah.
I remember having conversations with you though about you being like, oh, so many great people worked at ILM. I feel like I have to like really really try to get to that level.
Yeah,
you
of
definitely
course.
mentioned it quite a lot. So I think you had that feeling in you.
But that's like that's ambition. I still have the ambition to be as good as like other people who've like passed through the doors of ILM. I mean, just like there's many companies out there who have like just amazing cast of people who've essentially gone through. And yeah, I mean, like, I feel very lucky to have worked with any of them, honestly. And hopefully, I don't know if that feeling will ever go away, right? That's just the feeling of like wanting to be a better artist and being as good as the people you look up to. And I don't think there's ever going to come a day where I'm like, oh yeah, those guys who I admired when I was like in my 20s, I'm better than them now. That's just never going to happen. I think I'm always going to think they were amazing no matter what.
So I don't know if this is an imposter syndrome, but when I joined Shark Mob, I knew I was gonna have like a tough time doing the job. Basically, I had to do some designs for them, and eventually we designed it. And down the line, I improved, and then I had to redo it again. And I could see the difference in like, I think it was like 6 months. I could see the difference, how much better I've gotten, and how much better design I could do. So I think there was not an imposter syndrome, but I was really like, how did they hire me? And they hired me on the precedent that they probably hoped that I was going to make this improvement, and I did make the improvement. And I think after maybe 6 months of working, I really was pretty good enough to do the job. But up until then, I was stressed every day, constantly. I was like, how do I do this? I don't know. How do I do this? Why did they give me this task? I didn't really have this in my portfolio. How could I even get hired? That's all I could think of every day, probably for the 6 months, until I finally did something I was proud of,
I think this goes back to what we were saying before. Like an AD or whoever's hiring has so much experience. You should have at least so much experience most of the times that they can just tell that. I guess they just know by speaking with someone, looking into a portfolio,
Looking deep into their eyes.
Yeah, and like they can see potential, and it's great. Like, I'm so thankful to my first company because they really allowed me to develop, and they gave me the options and the room, I guess, to grow.
Yeah.
And it is great that some people do that, and like, and yeah. So basically, if you're hired, it's very tempting to have imposter syndrome. I mean, when I joined Framestore, I again had it for a while, but at the end, you're hired for a reason,
Yeah.
and just go with it.
Yeah, so my first week at ILM was very different to yours, Jules. I mean, you went straight into things, and I was like entirely the opposite. I suppose it's partially to do with like working at a very like big kind of bureaucratic company, especially one that's owned by Disney, right? But part of the deal is kind of like doing a lot of training videos and going through a lot of legal processes. And I mean, I was still, I think, answering like contract questions like after the contract was signed, almost in a way, like, you know, clarifying stuff and making sure they had all my contact information and everything was kind of kosher and good. It was kind of funny, really, because then people were asking me after I told them, like, I'm starting at ILM this week. And so when the weekend came around, people were like, oh, dude, how was your first week at ILM?
What did you work on?
What did you work on? And I was like, I watched some legal videos. So yeah, I mean, it was very different. And I think that's also something to expect, right? Is that a lot of studios, you have downtime when you start because it takes a while for you to be integrated into the studio. It takes time for you to learn the processes, like the submission processes, file naming, everything. And you have to know all those stuff to be a good part of the company.
Totally. And, you know, like even though I started to work almost the first day, I also had this whole process. It was just maybe more integrated within what I was doing. And I guess being a small company, there was less legal training and all that kind of stuff. It was more like you sign the NDA.
That's good enough.
You get used to the system, and this artist is going to take care of you. And it was like I was held by my hand kind of way, like perfectly fit into the pipeline.
How was it for you, Stefan, your kind of first week?
Yeah, I think it was in some way similar to Dan. I saw Shark Mob London at the time is when I started in Shark Mob London, and we did a lot of onboarding videos as well. I think just a lot of this is what this is. This is how this is. This is how this works. You know.
I like the videos where
you are a shark now.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
I don't know if you ever had those videos. I think I had them. I don't know if I had them at ILM, but I definitely had them in retail. Where they're like, "This is how you pick up a box." They're just like saying stuff that you're like, that I guess they have to say for legal reasons, but it's like very weirdly obvious, and you're kind of like,
you will never be able to sue us.
I guess also during that time, they introduced you into the project. At least for me, they introduce into the project, like this is what you'll be working on, but they might not necessarily give you the first task just yet.
That's probably a little bit different for film, right? Because when you're working in movies, there's often a lot of projects coming in and out of the studio, so it's kind of unlikely actually that when you join, they might not have a project for you at all when you join. I mean, it's not unbelievable to say that somebody could join a film studio and not work for a month essentially or longer. Which could be like, I guess that could be very stressful. I've heard of that happening to people, and I think that could be very, very stressful for some, you know, you have that anxiety of being like, oh my God, like I've joined the studio and nothing's happening. Am I going to get fired? But usually it's fine.
I think it depends how the people interact with you. You know what I tell you. You know, if the people, if the people
saying,
are honest.
How did you get in here? Why are you at this?
Oh, no one wants you. No, but you know, like if it's like, oh yeah, well, you know, I need this project because of X and Y reasons.
Yeah.
And then you end up getting a project. I think that's fine. Just, I guess that's maybe tricky for first jobs to be like, well, what am I here? But
yeah. I don't think you want to be like, why am I here? But I think you're just told what's going on, and you're kept in the loop of stuff.
Yeah, in games you will definitely have a project.
Yeah, true.
They'll be like, and this is what this project is about, and this is what you'll be doing.
So your first week, it was
You also just did training. You didn't do
I actually did. I did a little bit of sketching, but I think it was more out of anxiety. It's like, why am I not doing anything? And I joined some Slack channels where they're like talking about the guys that are already working on the game, and I'm like, I can help out here. Let me do some sketches, you know? And yeah, that's literally what I did.
Oh, nice. So you were like proactive and
yeah,
cool.
Well, yeah, because I was so anxious. I don't know, dude. I was sweating buckets. I was like, I should be doing stuff, you know? So, but that's normal. That's very, very normal.
And I think the stressful part is because maybe it's what you want to say, but it's also because you have a probation. So it might be a bit. So I guess if you have nothing to do, or if it's a bit slow, you're like, wait, I need to prove myself. Especially for your first job, I need to show that I'm competent. So in 3 months, or however long the probation is, I think for me it's always been 3 months.
I think mine might have been 6.
Yeah, me too.
Oh wow, no, okay, mine have been 3. Actually, the first
I don't know. Now that you're saying it, I don't know.
I
guess
also
it depends the company.
Remember. Yeah, I think it depends on the company, the person, everything. Can be anywhere from anywhere. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know how long.
And it's always like a bit, you know, at the first week, kind of, you know, getting to know the team, getting to know your place within the team, like how can you behave? Is it chill? Is it very strict and all that? So it's like finding your mark, which is always stressful, but that's just the time it takes to get used to something, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, that is totally normal, I think, as well. It's like probation can be very stressful, especially because ultimately it leads up to a meeting, right, where they either go like, we love you or we hate you. And yeah, I mean, you really, during those first like few months of the studio, I guess you're just kind of like doing everything to be like, I'm useful, I belong here, it's okay. I think it's like it's almost like a projected imposter syndrome where you're like, they must think I'm an imposter. I don't think I am, but they must think I am.
Am I so sus?
Yeah. You're like moving too weirdly and like, I gotta be normal. I mean, yeah, but I think one thing about like probation is like probably some people go into that kind of situation and they have anxiety about like being themselves in a way, right? Like, and you should just like be yourself and be normal and like show your sense of humor as long as that's like polite and nice, and get a good vibe for the place, because otherwise it's gonna be difficult for you to integrate like properly in a way, and actually become friends with the people you work with.
Did you ever hear about someone not passing probation? Not necessarily in your company, just in overall. Did ever someone didn't pass probation? You don't, without mentioning names or anything.
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
I don't know personally.
I can think of some people, I think. Yeah. But I mean, very rare. It's very, very rare. Yeah.
I feel... Yeah,
I think I heard of people like, sometimes it happens when someone joins a company, or like maybe it's not even just like, I mean, you can call it as not passing your probation, but probation is there for both of you, right?
Oh yeah, true.
So it's there for you to feel out the company and for the company to feel out you, right? And sometimes it could be a mutual decision where both of you kind of go, you know what, we don't work well together, let's end this relationship. And I have heard about that before. I think that happens, and I think that's why probation exists. That's the best way to use it. It's sometimes you might be like, oh shit, I have to prove myself to the company, but it's like in reality, you could also just leave, because it gives you a possibility to be like, okay, I don't like this, I can leave as soon as I can.
That's true.
I feel also the first job is you're more stressed for them not wanting you, but I guess the longer you're in the industry and the more jobs you switch jobs, then I guess it goes more them being scared of you maybe.
Yeah.
The first job is very difficult because in a lot of ways, like, when you're like green and you have no experience, it's really difficult to kind of justify anything to yourself. Like, you're like, okay, well, I can't negotiate. You like pretty much like if someone gives you like a price for like how much they're going to pay, you're just going to take it. You're not going to be like, I think I deserve a little bit more, because you need a job and you want the experience, and it can be very, very difficult to. I mean, obviously, look, within reason. If someone gives you, they're like, we're going to pay you £10 a month.
We're going to pay you with your credits, your name in the credits.
Yeah, but generally, it is a very difficult thing, because like when you're moving on to your next jobs, you have so much more leverage. Yeah. Suddenly, I think the thing is, when you have no experience in yourself and it's your first job, you're in a massive pool of people, right? There are a lot of students out there who want to join the concept art industry, and there's a lot of people who want to switch jobs from industrial engineering or architecture or whatever the fuck into concept art. It's a very kind of like popular but niche subject matter. And so when you're in the camp with everybody, essentially, it's very, very difficult to set yourself apart, and you really have to get quite lucky, I think, no matter how kind of skillful you are in a way, to get that first gig. But once you have a job, suddenly you're in a much smaller camp of people, where I think one thing that I kind of learned early on in my career was just from people telling it to me, was they were like, because I remember being like, oh, concept art's like so difficult to get into and this and that, and it's so competitive, and they were like, not really, like there's so many people who struggle to find competent artists, or there's so many companies constantly looking for concept artists. It's just that all the people with experience usually have jobs, which means that they're then like trying to pick like a student who they think has the potential to do the job, which can be much more difficult. So yeah, like that first job is way more stressful just because of that, essentially. Like, but once you have it, and once you kind of have accumulated the experience, oh my god, it's like it ain't that bad. It ain't that bad, guys.
Yeah, clearly.
I don't know. I haven't changed jobs yet, so.
Yeah. No, it's. I think we all had a very good experience starting our jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally. Yeah,
we
Overall,
all had,
yeah.
My
It was
team
nice.
was just
People
like-
usually are very nice.
We
Yeah.
all, but we all want one good to note. If someone watches this like 10 years in the future, which they're probably not going to happen, we did all start during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So
That's true.
For example, even some of the questions I think maybe around anxiety of like, why am I not doing anything, would be answered if I was in the studio and someone just said, "Don't worry, that's just how it is."
Yeah,
you know?
true. And you have
Whereas like when you're still like on Slack, I'm like, should I message this person if that's normal? You know, and then you feel
I don't want to
weird
spam
about
them.
it. Yeah. It's like, oh fuck. You know, whereas in the office you'd just be like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, can I just ask? And then they just say, yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah.
Did you go in the office in your first like 3 months?
No, it was lockdown.
All from
Me neither.
home.
You couldn't,
me
couldn't
either.
do it, man. I think the first time I saw my colleagues was when there was officially allowed to have like gatherings, and I don't remember how many people you could see. Honestly, this was so long. Well, it feels long ago, and but I did see some colleagues after maybe 6 months from how I remember
wow,
it.
yeah, so-
After
so, yeah.
I started working there, and it was a surreal experience.
I feel very lucky because actually talking about how nice people are, you know, at our studios, like one of the great things was that I think pretty soon after I joined, the AD Jason, who was a lovely guy, did like a barbecue. And so it was like an island barbecue. So I got to meet some like old employees of the company as well. And it was also the first time I met all of them in person, like properly as I had met them before, but like as a student. So it was the first time I met them as a colleague. And that was really, really nice because, yeah, that was like towards the... I think lockdown had ended at that point, but, you know, their offices hadn't reopened. So it was just nice to get to meet everybody in person and have like a very specific social setting to meet everybody in. So that really, really helped because within the... Yeah, I think it must have been within the first month I joined it happened, I think.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
I think even if you work from home, like let's say you start your job tomorrow, after the pandemic, but you still work from home, I think it would be a good idea to encourage your team to meet in person, like as a welcome or like I think it's very nice. Also, it just breaks the ice.
Yeah. That's probably the same now even because so many people haven't returned to the office yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And probably never will, realistically, right? I think we've kind of... Hybrid is kind of here to stay.
But also we know even some people who work like part-time, full-time from home.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Maybe not, never even
I mean,
went
that-
to the company.
But that, so
I mostly work from home in my current job, and when I joined, they actually organized a little thing, and we all met, which
Yeah.
was very nice.
But what I was going to say was, like, if you have the choice of, like, going into the office or being at home or, like, going to stuff, always go to stuff. Try and meet people, especially in those first few weeks. It's very, very important. The more people you meet, the more people who know who you are, especially in your team, right? If you have those opportunities, do not turn them down. Like, go in there, meet people, be friendly, and you're going to feel way more comfortable way quicker because you've actually had those face-to-face interactions rather than just like a disembodied head. I remember the funniest thing about meeting everybody was like you have like you're like have no idea how tall everyone is.
Yeah,
that's always fun.
we all had that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, this
Okay,
person's
yeah.
6'3", huh? Weird.
I always get the comments that are like, "Oh, you're so tall." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah,
I don't know what to say on it. Okay.
I had some colleagues.
Okay. Okay.
And you're so short. I can't say that. Fuck. What do I say?
I had some colleagues who looked very short on the camera and were very tall in
Oh, yeah?
person. Yeah, like majority of the people were tall. Not that I'm not a very tall person, but I guess I'm average. Why?
Not in this room.
Or whatever. No, below average here. Yeah, and then
Oh, me and Joel, tall boys.
okay, it's not like I'm short.
Also, Dan is relatively short.
What?
Dan
I'm
just
like an inch shorter than you.
Dan
No,
just wears like
that's
shoes
the joke.
that make him taller.
I wear what?
Shoes that make you taller.
I
with,
do
like,
wear
high
Doc
boots.
Martens, yeah.
He has
Doc Martens are a good thing to
very
wear.
tall hats.
Yeah.
A nice English hat.
If you
like that.
count my hats and boots, I'm actually 7 foot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a bizarre thing to meet everyone and be like, wow, this is how it is.
I thought you were talking about the hats and the boots for a moment. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it is kind of that thing of like, I kind of hope now that COVID's like completely gone pretty much, that studios do make the effort to, you know, actually help integrate people. Obviously it was very difficult back then, but I hope that's less of the case now. I'd also just say like, even if you're not that big for like working into the office, just my opinion, right? But especially if it's your first job and you're like, you really want to work from home, if they offer you some time to go into the office, it's probably a good thing for your first job. Just in my opinion, because for your first job, it helps, like I said, like integrate you better. But also, there's a lot of learning that happens in person that you won't get online. So I know that a lot of people have very strong feelings about whether they work at home or if they don't, or whether it's hybrid. But I wouldn't, just in my opinion, if it is your first job, I don't think you should turn down something like that just because you have to go in physically.
Also, it's just, I've worked from home for a while at my first job, and then I get to meet everyone when I went to the office at a later date. And the amount of bonds, I guess, I created during that week where I went to the office, it was just so much valuable. Like, spending an hour with someone in person almost equals like a week of working with someone online, because you can talk about so many things. It just becomes more than art,
Yeah,
and
totally.
it's not like we chat because there's a problem. If you work from home, most of the time you're going to chat to fix problems, fix issues, or you're going to chat. You're not too often going to book meetings to just chat. I mean, it might happen depending which company you are in or with who you work. But especially for your first job, it's nice to meet people because it's just, it's so easy to speak with someone in person.
Yeah. Something that you kind of mentioned earlier was that, I mean, this is way back. This is way, way back.
Back in the day.
Yeah, you said, like, when you had your first kind of gig, you actually spent some time doing extra work after closing. And something I want to ask you guys is, because I think it's a common thing, and it's probably something people ask about, did you, I guess, do extra work in the hopes of, like, impressing your colleagues, essentially, or, like, trying to position yourself correctly? I can say, personally, I have done it once or twice on projects right at the start, but I think the more you get into studio, the more important it is to kind of like cement yourself as having like a good work-life balance and stuff. And I will say, I think, you know what, it's understandable in the first like month that you're there, maybe if you want to do an extra little bit of work after work, but you will end up with kind of like a never-ending problem of like, you put in 3 hours after work and your work looks a certain quality, and then they expect that quality. So then they're expecting a higher quality because they know that you can do this. So now you're putting another 3 hours, and that can just cascade so badly. So I just wanted to ask, like, do you guys have any experiences with that and the relationship to the first job?
I almost never did it, but I did it a few times when I was just joined, basically. It's when I feel like I know pretty well what I'm capable of. And so if I feel that for whatever technical reasons or like something happened for the day, I underperformed, I do feel like, just to feel good with myself, really, that I want to push this forward, because I want to, of course, I guess not impressed, but I want for them to be happy what I'm doing, right? Yeah. And also, I know that, let's say if I struggle with something technical issue during the day, I know that, well, whatever I haven't done today, I will have to do tomorrow, right? So I wouldn't be against just spending a little moment on it. It's not because anyone asked me. It's not because I feel the pressure of doing it. It was the only few times I did it. It was like, you know what? I feel like it would benefit. I mean, first of all, I feel like doing it.
Yeah.
And it would benefit the image. And
so it was more for you than for anything else. Yeah. Steph?
I have done it a lot. But only in my first year at Sharkmo. I think I really struggled with some of the tasks that they used to give me, and I felt like I had to learn a lot, and I didn't have as much mentors as I wanted to. Well, really because I was the only guy in London as a concept artist at the beginning. There was plenty of guys in Sweden, guys and girls, but
I heard there's plenty of people in Sweden.
But it was difficult, to kind of try to learn from someone who is just online. And I remember even for a while when we finally could go to the office, I was one of the few. I was just one concept artist going there by myself, and I struggled a lot with learning and with the tasks. So I did probably for the first year, every year minimum did like 1 hour every day extra, I think. But I also kept in mind always what Daniel said in terms of, yes, if you're you can't be giving in too many extra hours because then your work looks certain quality. So I was always mindful of that. I was always careful with it. And once I've reached a point where I was confident that I could do the work fast enough, I chilled out with all this stuff and started doing more personal work.
I've got an awkward question that you don't have to answer. What's the most time you've put into something after work? For me, it's an hour. It's the most extra time I've ever done.
In a day, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about any specific companies here.
2 hours.
Okay.
Yeah, max.
Stefan, go.
I've definitely done more than that. Probably like 5 hours, man.
Oh my god.
In one day?
Yeah.
Actually,
probably one time I think I worked until like 1 a.m. or almost.
Yeah.
What?
And I remember being like, at the point where like, this is not improving, why am I doing this? I was like, I need to go to bed and like look at this the next morning. I did it only once. I definitely learned from doing it. I was like, this is like useless, you know. I might as well, it's just like, but I was young and, well, I'm still young, but hopefully, But what I mean is I was really naive.
2 years ago.
Yeah, and I was really early on in my career, and I really thought like, if I try harder, it's gonna get better. But like, it's not true, really. Just need to ask for feedback at that point.
The most I did probably maybe like, in the weekend, I'm like, you know what? I feel like I'm stuck on this thing. I'm just gonna spend maybe 1 or 2 hours, kind of R&D. So it's not like I want to progress on the painting. I'm just gonna R&D on it. So on Monday, I can come back and be like, I know what I'm doing.
I try to
I know how to fix this now. But it's almost it's never been enough. Also, I've done very rarely extra work, and also the companies I've been in, they were like, just don't do extra. Like, they never asked for extra.
It's not going to help you, Jules.
Too late. But like they never ever asked for extra, and
I would say that's
and
the
also
same for everyone I've worked with.
They never asked for it. Like once in my previous job, once I said, I did that over the weekend, and they were like, just why? Like, you don't. Yeah. It's fine.
Well, they discourage it. Really, like the companies, they'll tell non do this.
Yeah. And it was always like my own choice for my own personal reasons. Yeah. But as an advice, I think if you really feel like you want to do it because it will make yourself feel better, go for it. But at the same time, take it easy.
Yeah.
Like, if your colleagues are not happy, if your boss is not happy with what you're doing, he's going to tell you.
But also, and also if you do have extra time on your hands, try to put it into personal work rather than like working for the company. And I just wanted to mention that, sometimes, as you were talking about over the weekend, sometimes it happens to me. Like, I'm working on a difficult design task right now, and it helps me to just like keep it in mind. And I went to some galleries for some inspiration over the weekend, just to be like, I can't think of this problem in some way. I'm gonna do this over the weekend and just keep it in the back of my mind. I wasn't going into the galleries for specifically to find inspiration for it, but as I was already in the galleries, I was like, this is interesting. Maybe I can use this for my concept, so I kind of keep it in my mind. But I would only do that again if I'm in a task that I'm struggling with. Yeah.
Do you guys have any kind of important advice for people? I guess it's probably I think one thing that I want to advise people to remember is that you are doing a probation. There's no reason to be too stressed. Like we said before, you've been probably hired for something correctly. But at the same time, a lot of early days at a company can be potentially people testing you a little bit. And it is important to be mindful of how you act and how you respond to stuff, because there's certainly scenarios where people will be asking you questions or giving you tasks, and that will probably come into play in the probation later because they're probably actively thinking about that as well. So don't be stressed, but don't be too cool.
Yeah,
is my little tidbit.
I'll say it's good to. I mean, I think a good company could maybe even. You should know who's your point of contact. I think who's your first point of contact as soon as you have a question. So for me, when I started Sharkmo, it was my art director, as there was not that many people. I think now it would still actually be my art director, but maybe in the future it's more like a principal or a lead if you have that concept artist or whatever team you are on. And those people usually are the people if someone asks you, like someone, let's say you're working on something and they go, can you do this for me, right? And you already have a different task and you are not sure how you should respond. You say, oh yeah, I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna try to do it, or go, I need to ask first. I'm not really sure. I'm sorry. I'm here only first week. And maybe I would do something like this and then go to my art director and be like, sorry, can I ask? I was asked this. And then he's already been in his company. He has the higher say and he just goes, no, don't do this, do that, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so you should always know, like, okay, who is my point of contact when I have questions, and don't be afraid to go to those people and ask them questions, because otherwise you just look like it's better to ask question to just keep it to yourself.
That's what I wanted to say as well. Don't be shy. Communication is key with so many things.
Yeah.
Communication is key with so many elements, and like it's like friends. If you communicate, your friendship's gonna last longer, possibly. If you're with your partner or like in a relationship, no, but it's true. Communication is so
You're
important.
taking this job too seriously.
I agree, communication is
I agree with you. Yeah, totally.
Like, it's just so important. Just speak, and if you feel, like, I mean, first of all, I think a good employer should reach out to you and be like, hey, are you okay? Like, is how everything going? How do you feel the project is going? And luckily, I had a lot of this, which is very thankful for it. But also, if you feel like you're not sure about something, ask around. If you feel like you're doing bad, just be like, hey, I feel like I'm not doing that well.
Yeah.
Do you know why? And they might say like, oh no, you're doing totally fine. Like, don't worry.
Yeah.
Just ask. Something I like as an advice. Something I liked doing, and I still like doing, is like each few months I just be like, hey, can we have a meeting? And I'm just, hey, how do you think I'm doing? Like, I feel like this is this, and then you can just talk a bit about your performance.
You not just have one-to-ones?
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Once a month?
No. So I would just be like,
I don't
hey,
have
can
one-to-ones
no, I don't
once
have
a
one-to-ones once a month.
Like once a year.
I have one-to-ones
really?
every 2 weeks.
Wow.
He's still on probation.
No, so I would just be like, I was like, hey, can we speak? I mean, I guess I do it a bit less now because I tend to speak with them more by default.
Yeah.
But I would be like, hey, can we speak? And like, hey, yeah, and then I would say how I feel, which I guess always has been positive. But if it was negative, I would also take the time to say negative stuff. And I was like, hey, I feel like this is going well. I really like this thing, and I just wanted to ask for feedback. How do you feel I'm doing? And if you have any advice or think you'd like me to either do less or do more, please let me know. And then they might be like, no, it's perfect. Or they might be like, actually, you're a moron. No, but, then, and I guess at the end of this meeting, you're going to feel much better. You're going to feel relieved. And your employer is probably going to be like, what a good employee.
And the other thing is that can save you a lot of trouble, because there's always the chance that you aren't performing in some way, and maybe they're just too polite to tell you. I've heard about it happening for sure. And if you're kind of what's the word?
Reflective?
Self-creating, maybe, these meetings, like you're the one actually like instigating it. Is what I was saying for, then that can save you a lot of trouble, because if you say like, oh, hey, how is it? I've been working on this map painting project. How do you feel about it? And they go, oh yeah, actually, we're not very happy. Yeah. That could save you a hell of a lot of trouble down the line.
Like, show that you care. Show that you care about them as well. Because I'm sure you do. It's your job. It's like what you do during most of your time in your life.
Yeah. I like to show that I don't care because I'm cool. I call them into a meeting. I'm like, how do you think I'm doing? And they go, I mean, you're a horrible failure of a concept artist. And I put on some sunglasses and a little backwards hat, and I go, I don't care.
No, it should be different. Then it should be like you get them to the meeting room and you go, I know I'm doing great. Put on sunglasses and leave.
Leave. Yeah,
just
ultimate power play.
Book a meeting with them, and then at the end you're like, yeah, don't go. Just be like, you know what? I don't have time. I don't have time for you. Sorry.
Yeah. In the email, like after the ride, like, oh, sorry, I didn't come. I know I'm already doing great.
Wow. Yeah. This is all excellent advice.
Or just be like,
do this.
Or in the meeting, just say like, don't worry, you're a good employer. I'm not gonna leave. Just talk to them like talk down to them.
Can I just go one step further? Pull out their artwork from that month.
Yeah, be like,
put it on the table and start redlining it.
This is perfect.
And it's like, I'm an HR. You're like, I don't care.
I think I don't know. I think it does happen. I like the point that Daniel made about asking like how you are doing. I still do it even
That
now.
was Jules's point.
Oh, is it Jules?
You
Sorry.
stole my point.
Sorry, man.
But even like asking how you are doing yourself and figuring out if you are on track, and I still do it now. Especially sometimes when I do something and I go, "Oh, I should have done this faster." I'll ask and we'll talk about it. And if I could change the thing, I'll ask like, "What do you think I can change?" and stuff like that. Where was the mistake? Because it's not always your fault.
I would just say like so I think somebody told me when I started my first job, they were like, you don't want to ask too many questions because you'll look like an idiot. That was not good advice.
No.
Just to say, asking questions about like anything. How does this filing system work? How do I finish this project? What techniques should I use here? Is the best stuff you can do, because you're saving, again, just like you were saying with the asking for meetings, you're saving yourself trouble. If you think that the best way to perform on a certain project is to do a bunch of black and white thumbnails, and then you give it to your art director and he goes, why the fuck did you do that? You should have asked. And there were so many things where I think I really should have. I was really afraid of looking like an amateur when I started my first job, without the kind of the reality in my head of the fact that, I am an amateur and they're expecting that, and that's totally fine. And actually, it's something that I know some of my employers, like in the past, have said is really good. They've been like, "Oh, it's great that you ask questions all the time, like, because it actually saves us a lot of trouble."
Yeah.
So just to say that, like, definitely your first job, do not be afraid to look like an idiot, because you probably are an idiot.
Also, I think every time just add, it cannot be a wrong thing. That said, I'm gonna backtrack a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Listen.
I'm
alright?
listening.
If you ask, listen.
Oh,
to what
sorry.
they say.
Yeah. All right.
Like, please, because if someone takes the time, an AD or whoever, to explain something to you because you asked, or they take time to teach you something, and
Don't
then you
ignore
don't
it.
apply it, it's
Yeah.
like asking for feedback and not applying it. Like, just listen, be careful, and okay, you can ask many times for the same thing if you want, but like, just if you ask, listen to the answer and try to apply it.
Yeah. And if you can't apply it, maybe just spend 10 minutes looking it up on the internet before you go back to them. I think it is good to, while it's very good to ask questions, there is kind of a point to also like try and solve the problem yourself first. I think exhaust your options of like, if you're doing a keyframe, let's say, you've got it to a certain point and you're like, oh, I don't know how to make it better. Try some stuff, grab some references, start doing a little bit of paint over, do a few sketch over options, then contact your AD after you're like 100% sure you don't know what to do, and then say, hey, look, I'm a little bit lost with this. I've done this and I thought about this and I thought about this. Do you think any of that's correct? Or is there another better way to do this?
There's a very thin line between spending too much time. Let's say there's something on a server you need to access.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm sure I know how to do it. And you're like, oh, should I contact this guy? Like, no, I should at least try a bit before, Or like, what illustration you're like in between asking for the easy answer or just doing some efforts and just finding the answer yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a very thin line between spending an hour and not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
And then you lose an hour of your day.
Yeah.
Or just asking and annoying someone who already told you the answer 3 times, but you just forgot it.
Yeah.
Or like just asking someone for like the most, something that you should know because they already told you. And I think it's pretty much every team different, or each job is going to be different.
Yeah.
But with time, try and find a good balance between always try to solve the issue yourself.
Yeah.
But always know when to stop and when asking someone, because like it happens to me that I was looking for resources. I looked for it myself. I didn't find it. And I'm like, well, you know what? I looked for it and didn't find it. Then I guess it's not there. And I just continued with my day. And then I kind of forgot about it. And I just did without it. Right?
Yeah.
And then later on, I mentioned it in a meeting, but it was like much later. And it was like, oh yeah, it's here. And I was like, oh, I should have asked,
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't want to bother them too much.
Yeah.
And I did the effort to look myself, but I didn't find anything. And I was like, I guess it's not there. And so just ask.
I think you're totally right. There is a very thin line, and especially when you're transitioning from student to professional or just amateur to professional, it is nearly impossible to find that line. You're always going to go one way too far on the other side of it.
Yeah.
It takes I think it actually takes quite a long time, probably more than 6 months, to be honest, to find the line, because you have to number one, actually become proficient with the systems that you might be struggling in. Because like I remember, like some of the biggest problems when you join a new company are often not art related. It's often to do with like filing and making sure your layer stacks are clean and communicating with people properly and blah blah blah. So yeah, it's kind of a unavoidable thing, but I guess just don't be too scared when it's happening. You know, like you said, sometimes you'll go one way too far and the other times you go the other way, but it's good to make those mistakes, I suppose, so you can find the correct answer eventually.
Totally. No. Something I want to add to that is we talked about filing a bit, and I think just try and care about the details, right? If you're great at your job, but you keep submitting it wrong, or you keep naming it wrong, despite them telling you every day to name it right.
Yeah.
You might be like, yeah, but I'm an artist or whatever. Like, I don't need to name it, you know. No, it's like you're in a company, you're a professional. So take the time and efforts to dedicate some of your energy. If you need to finish a keyframe for the day, but you need to submit it, then plan the amount of time you need to do that in your day. Because you don't want the person next to the line who has to take care of the thing you just submitted, you don't want them to do overtime, right? And they don't want you to, you know. So like, just think about others and care about the details.
My filing was so bad for ages, and I really like what you just said. Like where you're like, I'm an artist, I don't need to care about that. 100% like what was in my head. I was like, like actual
File
having
structure,
like file structure, like
it's like naming conventions, where to upload it,
putting stuff in the right server, things like that. And yeah, you're right. I totally had that mindset of like, oh yeah, like it's just whatever. Why do I have to do this? But of course, like the longer you're at the studio, the more you come to understand that this stuff actually has a very important purpose, and it will probably save you a lot of time down the road because there might be a time where you have to go and recover a file.
It's like respecting your colleagues in a way.
Yeah, and so yeah, you're saving a lot of people a lot of time by doing stuff correctly, and you know what? I'll be honest. It used to take me a very, very, very long time to file and name stuff correctly. Now it doesn't take so long. And I kind of wish, like, retrospectively, one thing I'd done would been to maybe, like, talk to my colleagues more about it and to be like, I'm really struggling. And just be honest about it. Like, admin is not my thing and I'm really lost and I could do with, like, I don't know how you can help, but maybe, like, you know, this and that. It could have helped. Could have gone a long way for me. So, yeah.
I've learned my file structure from one of my colleagues. It was very nice.
Yeah.
And no, it was weird because I used to have the most also disorganized structure. It'd be like final 1, final 2, you know, and like, oh my god. And then if you know, like when you
Only 2 files.
Final.
Yeah.
To be.
and you have no idea how to look for your files, and when you save your files, it would be like cube design or whatever, or whatever you're doing, a triangle design, you know. And then rather than being like, you'd be like, where are these the sketches for the triangles? Where are these the thumbnails for the cubes? You know, like, was this the final painting? You know, and then one of my colleagues was like, no, this is how you. I think I need to change the file structure because it's so long. I have all the details of everything in there, so maybe it's too long because I can't read it until I like click on it or like hover my mouse over it. But it's a very good because it keeps everything super organized. Like all my files are in the perfect order. If I save everything, it's all in the perfect order. If I drop it into a file, it will be perfectly alphabetical, perfect like it was like this file, this file, this file, this file. You can see all the VIPs.
Yeah. It's
good, but maybe too long of a file name structure.
Talking about admin, is this kind of admin, kind of art?
Yeah, that is.
No, I'm talking about a different thing.
Oh, okay.
It might be.
Yeah, it might be because you haven't heard what I'm going to say yet.
Everyone is...
Yeah, go on.
Can't wait what you're going to say.
Well, I mean, I could have got on with it if you didn't if you stopped interrupting me.
We should have a drum roll.
Kind of admin, kind of art, layer structure in PSDs. One thing that I think a lot of us are incredibly unused to, which is totally relevant at like every art job, is that at any moment you could go on holiday. Maybe you get sick. Maybe you move studios, like whatever it is, right? But there could always be a sudden stoppage to your work for whatever reason. And one of your colleagues will have to take that project over, right? And so I think it's very, very important to remember that, like, in the same way as like when you're talking about like respecting your colleagues by not messing up naming conventions and stuff like that, respect your colleagues by having like at least a fairly organized and like movable PSD where people can go through it and be like, okay, that's the renders and that's the plate and that's the paint and this and that. It doesn't mean that it has to be the most perfect thing ever, although I'm sure some people would tell you it does. But it just has to be navigatable, because some PSDs are so messy that you would not have a chance in hell of finding what you want and moving things easily and blah, blah, blah. So it's a certain amount of planning and it comes with experience. But I'm just saying it's something that I think I should have dedicated more time to early on in my job. And I think it's a very good thing for people who are starting their first job to get into early on.
Also, I mean, do yourself a favor. You're going to be faster with feedback if you have an organized PSD.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you think about organization from the start, then you probably will also build your painting in a more logical way, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to, if there's sense in your layers, then I guess there's also sense in your painting because of how it's organized. So you're going to be able to work faster and just do nice things. And also, don't forget to upload your work, because what you're saying here means that that the person uploaded the work on the server, right?
Sure.
Some people don't I mean, it happens to me. I forgot to upload some stuff, right? I mean, if I know I'm gonna go away, I'm always uploading stuff, of course. But like, remind yourself to upload stuff, so everything is backed up.
Yeah.
Because if your PC
crashes,
dies, and you lose something, well,
big trouble.
It's not the PC's fault. No,
it's
your fault.
Yeah.
You're professional. You're expected to have backups, and especially if one of the rules of the company is to put stuff on the server. Well, then if your PC crashes and you lose it, then that's your fault.
I'm gonna go home and back up all my work now.
I mean, I need to work on that as well. The minimum that I do is that when I send my work to people, so I know that I might not have the PSD saved, but I regularly kind of back up my file, semi-regularly. I back up maybe like my 3D files. I know I don't back up my Photoshop files as much, because I know I have at least the final image or whatever is work in progress. So in absolute worst case scenario, I can just go and recut the image, and it's not the best, but yeah, ideally you should be able to save it, and I'll probably start doing it soon, I think, because I know it's important. Yeah.
Has anybody else got any little tips or tricks for first jobs?
Take a big breath, and it's going to be fine. You've been hired for a reason.
Yeah.
It's a business. No one is doing charity. and you'll be good, and congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. I mean, hopefully there are some people listening to this who maybe you've even listened to some of the other podcasts and they've actually got a job, and like genuinely, getting into the concept art industry can be a very long grind, and whether you got into it quickly or very slowly or in a medium amount of time, genuinely well done. And for those of you who aren't in the industry yet, you'll make it one day, hopefully, and you'll be able to listen to this podcast and go, God damn it, yeah, my layer structure does suck.
I would say one of my advice is, just like I talked with the probation, that you are in the company there, you are helping the company with a project, but also you need to always be checking if you like the company, and try to keep your options open. Maybe if you haven't had a project that you can publish, try to do more personal work so you can move away if you need to. Which
you've got your first job, time to leave.
No, but it's good. What if you join a job, is the perfect company you always to work with, but everyone is just really toxic and you can't stay there anymore, right? Like, then that could happen. No, I don't really know if I ever know anyone who that happened to, but I'm sure that could happen, and you would want to try to be open to those things as well. So don't just be like, I have to like it, blah blah blah. It's like, no, man, try to enjoy it. If you enjoy it, then enjoy it, and if you're not, then maybe ask around, go to somewhere else. Yeah,
but it's okay. You will enjoy it, probably.
Yeah, I think so.
Keep
I think
a positive mindset.
Nowadays, also, I think nowadays most companies are very, very nice.
Down.
I was mostly talking about like the relationships with colleagues, and I think nowadays, especially in like films and games, this has improved a lot, and people are very polite and nice, and there's a lot of this good stuff.
Yeah, you guys are okay.
Yeah,
I always had very positive experience.
Yes,
so,
me too.
So don't worry, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the podcast today. Hopefully you enjoyed listening and found something useful in it. If you want more from the podcast, then feel free to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We release episodes every 2 weeks, and if you want, Jules, what are you laughing about?
Perfect.
You okay?
We recorded 4 podcasts today. At the end of the day, we're kind of tired, but yeah.
What do you mean? These are all fresh. They're fresh on the day we
Yeah.
release them.
So yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Can I finish the outro?
Of course, finish it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you. We release episodes every 2 weeks, and if you want any more additional information about the podcast or the event, be sure to check out our Instagram linked in the description below. Thanks again, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.